Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree. I'm your host, Dean Gutik. Alongside with me, as always, Aidan Chard, Jack Casello, and Noah Schwartz in the same room. Boys, what's going on?
What's up?
Not much.
It's great to hear. We got a lot to go over today. We got Anthony Davis and his injury last night, Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, Russell Wilson, and of course the horrible news that happened today involving Vincent Jackson. Let's get started with Anthony Davis. So Anthony Davis picked up an injury last night regarding his Achilles tendon. Noah doesn't want to talk about this, but
No, I do actually.
okay. I'm only saying it because I know it's tough. I know it's tough for you. AD will be out 2 to 3 weeks with the calf strain. Do we think AD should have played last night? Now, there's a lot of buzz going on because the team doctors did not want AD to play, but apparently AD said, I'm going to play. So, Noah, I'll start off with you. What do you think of this?
Well, first of all, before I say anything about the Lakers, I just want to wish a slightly late happy birthday to the great Dean Gutik. Turned 20 yesterday. Happy birthday, Dean!
Thank you. I'm old.
You are old.
Not as old as me, but pretty old.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
we get it.
Okay, Jack. Thank you. And Noah, please
Jack's
take it
almost
away.
21. It's crazy. So anyway,
Actually,
yeah.
tomorrow's my half birthday.
Oh, is it? Ah.
February 16th.
So as we all saw, it was a brutal injury last night, and as soon as it happened, I was kind of in a state of shock, in a state of sadness. I thought it was a lot worse than it ended up being. Thank God. So it's only a sprain. It'll be out probably 3-4 weeks. He'll probably miss games all the way up to the All-Star game, come back maybe at some point in the second half. So at least that's good. But as to your question, Dean, should he have been out there? The obvious answer is no. And the reason is this. And Jack has said this to me a couple times in the last 24 hours since the injury happened. But when you have an Achilles issue, and obviously he had the tendinosis, that's something you have to take seriously. You don't joke around with an Achilles. We've seen it happen to so many guys over the course of history. Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson are the two most recent guys you can point to. When you have an Achilles issue, you really have to be careful with that because it can get bad quickly.
Rodney Hood.
So in this case, you had Anthony Davis. He has an issue. He's sore. He misses a couple games. He wants to come back. Obviously, he wants to be out there for a team that needs him, and they were in a couple overtime games, and nothing looked smooth, so he really wanted to come back. He came back. He played great in the first game against Memphis on Friday, and last night the injury happens. But again, if I'm a Laker team doctor, if I'm one of the Laker front office people, I have to put my foot down there, and I'm not sure exactly how those conversations went. If they recommended AD could come back, if he really forced his way back into the lineup. Again, I'm not sure. But either way, you have to be more careful, and you can't let a guy go out there with a chance to re-injure it. And he may have looked fully healthy. I mean, he seemed like he was fully right up until the injury last night. But if there's any chance of a re-injury, if there's any chance that he's overcompensating with his other parts of his leg or his other leg, you can't let him go back out there. You need him at 100%, not just for the, I guess, second half of the regular season, but for the entire playoffs when it really matters. And so he needs to now rest up, be back whenever that is, and take as much time as he needs, because this whole issue could have been easily avoided if he just missed another couple games or a week or however long it was. This could have been avoided, and it wasn't, and now the Lakers have to deal with the after effects, and it sucks. It really does.
It's also, as we saw with the Lakers before they got AD, LeBron alone was not good enough to carry that team. And yes, he was hurt for a lot of the year, but it's still important to note, like, getting AD there is really what made that team from okay to great. And so without AD for a couple of weeks, they're going to have to figure out a way to win games. And the West is, it's not loaded, but there are definitely a couple good teams that could be challenging them. The Jazz are surprisingly good right now. I think they're actually atop the West. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
They're on fire right now.
Yeah.
They are having a great first half of the season so far. And of course, like, I personally doubt that the Nets have what it takes to win the championship, but the Nets are a good competitor. They have a lot of offense, and they definitely could pose a challenge to the Lakers even if the Lakers do make it into the to the finals. I think even with AD. that's going to be a big challenge. So we'll see where it goes. I think the Lakers need to obviously win as many as they can, but it's going to be a tough couple weeks for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the Lakers, we've all said they definitely need to be cautious after this. You had KD, Klay Thompson. You could even throw in there, I believe, Kevin Love at a certain point. But now, as a Laker fan, obviously, I know you're a Laker fan. Obviously, you want the team to come to the playoffs healthy, but you want to also win games at some point because you don't want to be on the wrong side of seeding, especially in a conference that is as deep as the Western Conference, a conference that is as stacked as the Western Conference.
And you're right, Dean. And I think one of the reasons why the Lakers were so successful last year going into the playoffs is their path wasn't maybe as brutal as it could have been. They did avoid the Clippers, right? If they were the 2 seed or the 3 seed, they wouldn't have avoided the Clippers. They were able to get Denver in the conference finals. They played a sub 500 Portland team, dangerous, but still sub 500 in the first round. So they didn't have to play quite the level of opponents that maybe some of the other teams did. And one of the things that I will tell you, even as a biggest LeBron fan, you'll find they're not making it past maybe the second round if LeBron's there and AD's not. LeBron could do everything. He could score 40 points a game and go for triple doubles night after night. They're not a finals contender. So they need AD back healthy. And of course, winning games now is important. But I believe that with a healthy Anthony Davis, they can beat anybody in the West. So, you guys said, they got to win as many games. Sure, you want to, and you want to be on the right side of the conference in terms of seeding, but it doesn't matter if you don't have Anthony Davis. So they need to get him back. That's the number one priority. I think that's without a question.
Yeah. The biggest thing I'll say about this in terms of how this hurts the Lakers, more so it hurts them defensively. AD is probably he's a top 3 defender. You can argue he's the best defender in the entire NBA. But in terms of offense, they have guys who can step up. Trez can score. Schroeder can score. But like I said, defense is more where it's going to be hurt. The biggest problem I have with this, and you guys may disagree with me, but if I'm Jeannie Buss, the second that he got injured that game, I'm firing the team doctors or anything like that. The amount they have invested into Anthony Davis, because not only they signed him long-term, he is this team's absolute future. And
the present.
Yeah, and like LeBron, but yeah, and the present. But also, not only that, you just signed LeBron. And like Noah said, without AD, this team is not winning. And LeBron doesn't have that many championship years left. And without AD, there's no chance they can do that. Why you're even risking him out, why you're even putting him out there is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and to add to Jack's point, I even said to Jack last night, I said, because we didn't know the result of the injury when it first happened. I said to Jack, if this turns out to be a rupture and he's out for this whole year plus next season, maybe half the next season, this could ultimately determine for a lot of people what LeBron's legacy is, because I think he's the greatest. A lot of people don't. Those people are trying to see if LeBron can win more titles to ultimately elevate himself into that conversation as the GOAT, as the number one player, whatever you want to call it. If Anthony Davis is out, LeBron now misses this year and possibly, most likely, next season. So now LeBron's into year 20 or 21 before he's truly a finals contender again. And by that point, he may be too old where he can truly lead a team to the NBA finals and win another championship. This whole MRI that we had today was a huge part of LeBron's legacy. And thank God he ended up getting the right result there. But it could have been truly crucial for him. And his whole run of championships could have been over. His whole dynasty on the NBA could have ended this morning. It didn't, but it could have.
Well, he is going to get reevaluated again, I believe, when he makes his return to Los Angeles. So there's also that. But Jack, I may have to disagree with you on the team doctors thing. Now, I agree with you. You shouldn't have sent him out there, but the team doctors advised via Twitter that AD shouldn't have gone out there. But AD said, no, I want to play. And that's the thing of a moral of a player. You want to play the game. It's the game that you love. You want to go out there and win. But you have to know, to a certain extent, the cost and the cost of an injury is what I'm trying to say. Long-term health, the rest of the season. Do you want to risk an injury now? So then when you're hurt later, your team's title chance to take a hit?
But Dean, I understand what you're saying. But then again, obviously he said he wants to play, but that doesn't matter. You need to go up to the guy and need to say, this is what we're paid to do. We don't think this is the best thing. This could hurt you down the line. And it's better to win the war than win the battle. in a sense. And I compare this situation to a kind of the easiest situation I can remember is the Mets a couple years ago with Noah Syndergaard. I think it was 2017. Syndergaard was off to a great start that year. There was rumors he could have been a Cy Young contender. He could have won the Cy Young that year. I remember he had his lat muscle. I think he had soreness in it, and they wanted him to get an MRI, but he said, "No, screw it. I don't care. I just want to go out there and pitch." And then he ended up tearing it, and he missed the remainder of that season. You have to listen to the doctors, and more importantly, if the doctors think he shouldn't be playing, they need to go to the coach and say he's out. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
No, I'm not saying the full blame. Sorry, Noah. I'm not saying the full blame goes on AD, but I think at least part of it should.
Part of it should, but I think it's mainly the doctors.
I agree, but I'm saying there has to be at some point.
I don't care if you want to play. You could get seriously hurt. You're not playing.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, a game against Memphis on a Friday, a random game in February against Denver on a Sunday, none of those games matter, right? They don't matter. The Lakers are going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be one of the top seeds. Just be healthy for the postseason. We've seen how that impacts teams for so many years. If you're healthy going into the playoffs, you've got a way better shot than just your average team with injuries. So
but then
the Lakers right now.
Why did you have such a big problem with the Clippers load managing last year? Because I remember every week you were talking about how ridiculous it is, how quiet
that's not true.
These games and how
you always made fun of it.
Every single week you
because I didn't think there was
Aidan.
And they were losing games, but I believe, and I am a true believer in this, that when Kawhi sat in Toronto, when they had Paul George sit games last year, I didn't really have any problem with that because they were coming off major injuries and they were fine. Now, I thought it was ridiculous that they were missing so many of those big games where it was truly a test to see if they were one of the top teams. They were missing games against teams like Milwaukee, which was to me ridiculous because you want to see if you can beat those top contenders. But to miss a random game against Charlotte on a Wednesday, I've got no problem with that. I never had a problem with that. I believe that LeBron James should be missing games. I don't think he should be playing every single night. I think it's insane that he's playing. So I'm not against load management.
I am so against load management. Load management is the dumbest thing. People pay money to get into these arenas to see you play. Say example. If you're playing like a random Knicks game, people pay money to come see Kawhi Leonard play, and then he just sits out. It's ridiculous, and it's a disrespect to the fans.
No, but
you're required to play. If you're healthy, you should be on the court.
No, but just tell Aidan. I wasn't necessarily against it. I thought it was sort of insane in some of the situations, but the concept of load management, the idea that being ready for the playoffs is the most important thing, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I do. I think if you're hurt and you need to sit, it's okay. But if you're fully healthy and there's no excuse for not playing, you should be playing. That's all I feel about that. But we'll talk about load management another time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not get into that.
Yes. Are you guys good to move on?
Yeah. Let's actually talk about load management because that's what two guys that we know are about to be doing.
Yeah, so speaking of load management, Blake Griffin, of course. So Blake Griffin, I believe, Blake Griffin is on his way out. To keep it short and sweet, Blake Griffin is on his way out of Detroit. It's a matter of time when and how is he going to get traded. Jack, kick it off.
Yeah, all right. So Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, both of them are spectacular players. Obviously, they're not in the best situations, mainly Blake. Truly, I'm sure, Dean, it kind of upsets you. I'm sure you have love for Blake Griffin in your heart. When healthy, he is an absolute one of the most talented players you can find, and also in terms of athleticism. Back then, oh my God, you couldn't find anybody like him.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame guy.
It was so fun to watch him dunk.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. This year, he hasn't even dunked once, I don't think. From what he came from, it's so sad to see. But I absolutely think Blake Griffin could help a title contending team. I think he could be a great number 3, maybe a okay number 2, more so I think a number 3. He's smart. I agree with the decision that the Pistons made. Don't have him play out there. It was the best thing for both sides until you can come up with a trade or a buyout situation. Don't get hurt and don't risk any losing potential value from Blake Griffin. So it's a good idea for both sides. Andre Drummond situation, it's a little surprising. I thought they would have kept him. They traded for Jared Allen. And when they made the move last year, I fully thought they made that move to make him their franchise center. But then they just traded for Jared Allen. So it looks like they're going to be heading in a different direction.
Yeah.
And same thing, don't let him get injured and risk losing value. in terms of both these guys getting traded, I really hope Andre Drummond is traded and not bought out, because I really don't want Andre Drummond to go to the Nets, which is exactly where I can see him going if he gets bought out. If Andre Drummond goes to the Nets, it's a guarantee they're winning the title.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I love Andre. No one knows this. I absolutely love Andre Drummond. I think he's a walking 15 and 15, and he'll give you 2 blocks. I think he's a little bit of an underrated defender. He's had plenty of years where he's averaged close to 2 steals and 2 blocks a game.
Finish.
Yeah, so I personally love Andre Drummond. I really hope he gets traded to any team. A team, I don't know, some teams could use him, a team that could be a good fit potentially that I like, especially if they want to use it for the future. It can help them make the playoffs this year and maybe help them contend for a title going forward. Maybe a good spot could be Golden State if they want to move like Wiseman. I mean, they have 2 young centers, the Cavs. They could do that. Like if you have Clay, Steph, and Drummond, that could be a good team going forward. But in terms of this year, for teams that's trying to compete for a title this year, Lakers could be possibly a very good fit. The Celtics, like you have in your background, he'd be really good for the Celtics. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's a guy that doesn't necessarily need just to be traded for contenders, because I can see teams wanting to build around him as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely, I would love to see him on the Celtics. The Celtics still have that massive trade exception from Gordon Hayward, and I think this would fit. He would be a good fit in Boston. And I'm not going to go super into it, but they're definitely they're definitely struggling right now. It has not been the best stretch of games for the Celtics. It hasn't been the best season for the Celtics, honestly.
Aidan, just to further your point there, we have the Knicks game on. The Knicks are about to win. They're about to be 1 game behind the Celtics.
How wild is that?
I don't want to talk about it.
I said in the preseason, I was down on Boston, and to me, look, they have stars. They don't have enough bodies. They have no depth.
I agree.
Yeah,
there's like so many.
And that's why I think
wasting away on the bench. It's so pointless.
They don't have talent, but also the biggest thing that comes to the Celtics for me, Tatum is a beast. I love Jason Tatum, but I don't think they're at a point yet where he could be the number 1 guy on a team that's going to win the finals.
I mean, the big problem is I think Kemba is not playing at an elite level. He's not being Kemba, so we don't have that shooter, that pure shooter. So I think getting another big man would be good, like Drummond.
Losing Gordon Hayward. Yeah. Well, and people make fun of the contract and everything that he got. That was such a massive loss. I was really down on the Celtics as soon as that happened, and I turned out to be right on it. They just needed an extra wing, a guy who could create a shot, a guy who could go for 20 points a night. They don't have enough players, especially now. They missed Kemba, and then Kemba came back, and then Marcus Smart got hurt right away. So they don't have enough bodies right now.
Did they offer him a contract, and he just didn't want to take it? Or did they
I
can understand. No, I think
he turned down his option. He had a player option.
He wanted to be like the guy, and I mean, it's understandable.
He's having a great year.
I understand.
All-star.
I can see you wanting Drummond. I think, obviously, I think he can help. I don't necessarily think he's the best fit for the Celtics just because they like to play positionless. I think a better guy, if they want to trade for a big man, maybe Vucevic. I want
the Lakers to go for Vucevic.
I think Vucevic is a better fit for the Celtics because he can spread it out.
Yeah.
Play down low. He's more.
There's a lot of guys for the Celtics.
I definitely positionless basketball.
I definitely think that trade exception will be able to turn the Celtics from what they are now into, at the very least, a conference finals contender.
Yeah. No, I can see that. The East is weak. It's so open, in my opinion.
Exactly. The Celtics right now, I think, are good enough defensively to beat the Nets, but not good enough offensively.
No.
I want to go back on one point Jack made a second ago about Blake, and I think there are a lot of teams that he could help, especially as a bench player. I don't think he's necessarily a starter at this point. He is having an awful season. I mean, and I know he's on a bad team. It's hard to get up for those games. But he is shooting, I think it's 37% from the field this year. He's just not the same guy. Now, in a smaller role where he's coming off the bench, or maybe he's like their 5th starter or something, maybe that's a better fit for him. But he doesn't defend the rim. He's not a versatile defender at this stage in his career. I don't see him being a difference maker necessarily, except if it's in a significantly lesser role. So I do think there's certain teams out there that do fit him. If I had to come off right off the top of my head, I think the Celtics would be a really nice fit, just as you mentioned with Aidan. And then even Philly to come off the bench and back up Harris to be an extra a shooter there. I think he could be really nice fit next to Simmons. And Dean, if he wants to go back home to the Clippers, he would fit because let me tell you, he could start. He could take Nicholas Batum's starting position, and he would be really good. Or they move Morris. I think he'd be really good with the Clippers. I'm not sure he'd go back there after the way they treated him because I think that was horrible, the way that they sent him packing. But if there's a team that really fits, I think that is the place for him.
But also, I think Blake Griffin more so I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he's going to get bought out because his contract is awful.
But here's the thing, though. He's on a 2-year deal. I think it's $74 million. Now
you're going to trade for guys that make $40 million next year.
The Pistons are going to have to eat a ton of that money. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of agreement they could come to, but he's not getting traded. It would be almost impossible to Jack's point. So they're going to have to eat a lot of that money, and I'm not sure they're going to want to do that. I think they may just have him sit for a while, play Jeremy Grant, play Sekou Doumbouya, play all their young Sadiq Bey, their young forwards, and have him just sit there until they find a team. I'm not sure they'll find a partner for him right away unless they can figure out a buyout. As for Drummond, you guys mentioned it. There's a ton of teams that need centers. I'm not as high on him as other guys, as other people, but he is a difference maker. He's an excellent rebounder, so we'll see how that goes.
I mean, of course, the Drummond's been involved in talks. The Raptors have popped up as one team, even though I don't think Drummond should go to a team that I think starting to sell. I think a team like you guys mentioned the Celtics and could be a great fit for him. Aidan, I don't know if your background is tampering or not, but maybe it's your way of recruiting him to Boston.
I mean, I'm not involved with the league, so I don't think it's technically against any rules.
Jersey swap? Are you sure about a fake jersey?
That's not tampering.
It's only tampering if he is a free agent and I'm involved with the team.
Well, he's on an expiring deal.
Yeah.
One other team I'll mention for Griffin, I just forgot to. I should have said this. I think Denver would be a fit for him. I was going to
say Denver.
Because Paul Millsap's older and JaMychal Green is shooting lights out, but he's not going to do that all season. They could use an extra guy off their bench.
Also, Kevin Love is another guy. He's definitely going to get moved through. He's not going to play anymore, right? He's in that situation with Cleveland, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Can you get off 2 big contracts like those two? I don't know. Yeah. And Kevin Love's on a massive deal.
Well, no,
now, Portland should be involved once that happens, but we'll see.
Here's the thing. Like Kevin Love is like the difference between him and Blake. I could see because Kevin Love is still in a position where I think he can average 19 and 9.
Blake's not that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
my point. People,
6 guy.
Exactly. That's my point. I'm saying people will be willing to trade for Love because he's still going to get you that value, and he's absolutely going to make a huge difference on a team. You don't know. Blake is a gamble, in my opinion. Yeah. Love, I think, is a guarantee to help a team no matter what.
If he gets bought out, I would love for him to come home. That's all I'd say. I mean, you could say he takes Batum's spot, but I mean, would you put Blake Griffin, though, over Morris and Batum? Just asking you, Noah.
I personally would, yeah.
I think Batum gets taken out of rotation.
I think Batum does, but Morris you can make a debate for. Morris is actually solid.
Morris is a great.
I like Morris. I like him more as a bench scorer. I think that's where he's a better fit. With Blake, the reason that he fits the Clippers so well, in my opinion, is because not only can he really shoot the ball, he's totally revolutionized his game and has become an excellent shooter, but his passing.
Yeah, he's a playmaker.
They really need that extra juice as a passer because they don't really have a point guard. I mean, Patrick Beverley kind of does his own thing, but he's not much of a ball distributor. Blake Griffin could get you 6 or 7 assists on some nights. So you could really use that extra juice as a passer and distributor and get Kawhi moving off the ball and George moving off the ball. They could use that, and I think he'd really help there. Sort of like almost what Marc Gasol is doing for the Lakers, but in a different way.
Yeah,
I agree. That's a great point. We're good to go.
Yeah, let's move on.
So now our next topic, one of the bigger topics. First of all, before I say anything, all I want to say is the QB market is on fire. Russell Wilson has been unhappy. Him and his camp has stated to the Seahawks, they've been unhappy. Obviously, Russell Wilson behind the Seahawks O-line has been sacked many times. Where does Russell Wilson go?
Over 900 times since he was drafted, or maybe not 900 sacks, but 900 dropbacks or something like that.
I think he's been sacked the most, though, out of any QB since he got drafted. Correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, by a lot.
Crazy.
There's also that. Now, where do the Seahawks go from here? I believe that the Seahawks are going to keep him, but I still think that obviously the offensive line has to be the main priority. I mean, you do not want your franchise quarterback to get hit this many times whatsoever.
I don't think the Seahawks should even think about trading him. They're obviously feeling off.
The outrage.
They're obviously fielding offers right now because people are calling. But as Ian Rappaport said, it's just them shooting their shot. I think the Seahawks' best plan of action is to, maybe move up in the draft. There are some good offensive linemen in this year's
They don't
draft.
have a first round
Yeah,
pick.
thank you.
I know, but
you.
that they got to exactly, which is why they have to move up.
Yeah, but what are you
Into the
gonna
first round? How are you going to do that?
I don't know.
They don't have much assets, Aidan.
Yeah, they don't.
That's, I know that's their problem.
They don't have any like good young solid players.
The other thing I think they could do is there is a potential that they could trade away Lockett because Metcalf has
better not do that. That's
No.
a horrible idea.
I
They
disagree.
hate Russell Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
Metcalf has been incredible so far. You're not going to trade him. He's a young guy. He's just getting started. And they've had solid receivers. If you really want to protect Russell Wilson, Lockett might be your best guy.
Even though,
Who else?
even if they
Who
make
else are
him,
you
that's
giving
not
up?
a first round pick you're getting back.
Yeah,
You're not going to get a lot of value out of it.
Don't go
You're
for a
not getting
first rounder then. Don't go for a first rounder from him. Just get a current O line.
Yeah.
The
Maybe.
Seahawks don't-
I know there are teams looking to dump cap. The Saints are looking to dump cap.
How about they give us Lockett? We'll take.
They could be willing to trade away an offensive lineman. I know that there are other teams that could be looking for some receivers. I think the Colts could also be a good option, and the Packers. Both of them are basically receiverless. I mean, the Packers have Devontae, but who else are you really?
And my man Equinemius St. Brown.
So
Notre Dame.
If you're really thinking about the pieces that the Seahawks have that are not untouchable, Lockett kind of stands out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that. But I don't.
Fair enough, but I don't know if they.
I don't think it's necessarily the best option, but it might be the only.
It's so. No, you go, Dean.
The Seahawks are in a tight position right now. Not much cap space, not much assets to work with, thanks to the good Jamal Adams trade. Pleases Jack. I mean, they don't have much. Oh, Noah too. They don't have a good O-line. The Seahawks are in a tightrope position, so it's like, what could you get? Who could they sign with not much money, and what could they do with these assets? The Seahawks are in a crucial position to even help Russell Wilson, and let alone there's teams in the division that are going to get better than them, such as the Rams. The Niners are pretty sure going to be back when they're healthy. The Seahawks aren't in the best position right now, and it's going to be hard for them to get Russ support.
No, they're not, Dean. And I think more so than just teams calling the Seahawks and saying, oh, what would you give us for Russell Wilson? There's more to this story than just that. To me, the most telling sign here is this. For the last 9 years or so, Russell Wilson has been the quiet, gentle soul. He's never said anything bad publicly. He has never come out and trounced John Schneider or Pete Carroll or anybody on that team. Never. You would never consider him to do that one time. But he's coming out, he's calling out his offensive line. He's basically calling out the personnel people, so John Schneider and his team. And what I'm getting from this is he's no longer afraid to stand up and stand out. And I think part of the reason for why that is because he sees other quarterbacks looking to talk. He's seen Brady talk more. He's seen Deshaun Watson, obviously, want out. Rodgers. So other quarterbacks are talking, and he's like, I'm in that class. People respect me. I should be able to have the same voice. And when he's not consulted on draft picks, when he doesn't have a chance to really evaluate what free agents they should get or anything like that, that's going to make him upset, and he has a right to be upset. And I think now he's like, I have to be involved in this because I don't trust the people that are above me doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. He doesn't trust those people. So now he's like, I got to get involved in this. I got to make myself almost like a GM. And that's not really the greatest path to go on because I know that in most NFL organizations, you don't really want your players getting involved in that stuff. But when you failed Russell Wilson as many times as the Seahawks have, they almost have to kowtow to him because there's no other path forward. It's either you let Russ do what he wants or he demands a trade in a year and he's gone. So they're walking a really dangerous line right now. They're really getting to the edge of the cliff. I mean, they've almost fallen off at this point. So it's either you significantly improve the team and allow Russell Wilson to have some say, or you lose the greatest player in the history of your franchise, and it's not even close. So they only have one of two options, and neither option's really the right one, but they've got to pick the one that involves Russell Wilson being their quarterback for the next 10 years.
Yeah, but the sad thing is, and it really is, the sad thing is, like, ever since the Malcolm Butler interception, they've done absolutely nothing to help Russell Wilson whatsoever. And that's where the biggest thing. We talk about the offensive line. They traded their superstar center. I'm sure Aidan was very happy about this. They traded Max Unger, and that completely tore their O-line down. It's been all downhill from their O-line since then. He was the anchor of that O-line, made them special. But also, and I said this to Noah the other day, the biggest thing, Russell Wilson is on a big contract. Obviously, all that's great and all. He deserves every penny of it. But the biggest reason why I think the Seahawks...
He's underpaid.
Well, when he signed, he was the highest paid quarterback.
Yeah, but now he's underpaid.
Now he's underpaid. I'm just saying that's just how it goes. But anyway, back to my point. The biggest reason why the Seahawks haven't had success, you can argue, obviously, also, Russell Wilson has carried them to the playoffs every single year. And they don't draft well. I said this to Noah the other night. They probably have been the worst drafting team.
Penny.
They probably drafted
Hey, at least their first round picks have been better than the Rams over the past 9 years.
Jermaine Ifedi was the guy they picked on the offensive line. I don't know. Is he even in the league anymore, that guy?
I don't know. I've seen him on Madden a bunch of times.
Oh, he's horrible. They picked Rashad Penny, as you mentioned. They picked the guy Collier a year ago. He's done basically nothing through 2 years. They don't draft well. The only time they do draft well is they get lucky with receivers in the late rounds, like Metcalf in number 2 in the Lockett. And then they got lucky with Chris Carson in round 7. Other than that, they've done nothing. Nothing.
That was sad.
And not to mention, they drafted Jordan Brooks. And Aidan, I want to go back to your point. You said better than the Rams picks. There's a difference between a team that knows how to draft well and a team that knows how to build their team compared to a team that has failed their quarterback and to a team that has almost nothing to work with whatsoever.
Yeah. And it's like, here's the thing. You see the difference. I'm just saying, you see the difference in teams. I'm just saying, like, I always say this, like the Steelers. The Steelers are always good because the Steelers never draft. The Steelers never draft poorly. They always find one or two guys that not even for their Pro Bowlers, they're solid players and they're going to contribute. They're going to contribute in ways other than special teams, like no matter what they pick. Like a team like the Packers. The Packers, they don't draft great players, but they never draft anybody that's truly awful. That's my
except for A.J. Dillon and Jordan Love. Sorry.
Hey, don't say that.
Sorry, I had to. You knew that was coming.
A.J. Dillon was the best running
back.
It's
not his fault.
I'm looking through the picks, the first round picks from the Seahawks. In 2020, they picked Jordan Brooks. 2019, they had L.J. Collier. 2018, they had Rashad Penny. Nothing in 2017. Ifedi in 16. Nothing from 13 to 15. And then Bruce Irvin. That's probably their last great first round pick.
And isn't here? Isn't Bruce Irvin retired now?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God.
And they also got Earl Thomas and Russell Okung in 2010, which was a good draft for them.
And this year they have nothing.
Outside of that, like outside of those picks, they really are not particularly good in drafting, especially recently. I mean, they have only had 4 first round draft picks since 2013.
But they messed them all up.
Yeah.
And they've messed all 4 of them up.
But the key is about drafting. And here's and we're gonna just go to another example, just because this one really stands out to me more so than all the others, is the Los Angeles Rams. They haven't had a first round pick since they acquired Jared Goff. And they nail the draft every year. And they nail it every year. They found Corey Littleton the year they went to the Super Bowl. This year they found Cam Akers. They got value from my guy Jordan in the 6th round.
Cooper Kupp.
John Johnson.
Players. They get guys who are going to contribute. That's all I always say about the Jets problem. The Jets every year from rounds 4 to 7. They never find a guy who's going to contribute other than special teams. That's the key to all these teams and success.
And on top of that, I don't necessarily think the Seahawks have done all that well in free agency.
No, because they can't spend.
I mean, they're not really spending a lot, but even
tied to
even on the guys they do spend on, it doesn't seem like you've seen a lot of impact from those players. And I think one of the biggest issues that they've had is not only have their players, a lot of them retired early, like Cam Chancellor, but they've seemed to piss off a lot of their guys who were core members of the old Super Bowl team. Like Richard Sherman is still good. He could still be contributing on the Seahawks. Obviously, he left years ago because he was fed up with Pete Carroll and whatnot. So they've got to improve their culture. They've got to let Russ do his thing. and they have to figure out a way to put the pieces around him that fit because they haven't ever done that in what we said 6 years, 7 years. I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah.
And they're going to become the next Packers. They're going to be the team with a pissed off quarterback.
They already are.
And that leaves them high and dry, and they're a waste of a franchise.
And,
there's a difference.
and I want to add one more thing to Noah's point, how they don't hit well in free agency. They never do that. And you know what the sad thing is now? They don't have even much money to spend, but now they have to pay Jamal Adams. There's no excuse. You just gave up 2 first-round picks for the guy. You have to pay him.
Right.
No matter what. I don't even think he played. Like last year, he didn't play that well. Not to mention he's at a position where that
not a premium
that experts don't like to pay premium money to.
Right. So now what do you do at left tackle? What do you do at center? What do you do at all those other premium positions where
they're in a situation they can't win?
Is there any world you can see where Wilson gets traded?
Not this
offseason.
Not this year. Next year.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it because the Seahawks know that even if they mess up another draft, even if the drafts they've had the last few years are awful, they know that they'll win about 10 games just because they have Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Bobby Wagner, the guys they have. But once Bobby Wagner has passed his prime, and he's getting there, and once some of their other core guys from the older teams are a little bit removed from being the core members of this franchise, then it's like Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and a whole lot of nothing. At that point, then it's worth it because they're only going to win 6 games a season, even with the greatness of Russ. So they've got another year, maybe 2 years left winning a bunch of games. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to be good. After that, they're going to be a bad team you'd expect. That's probably the way this is going, and then Russell's going to be gone as soon as that happens.
Yeah, and I like how you I agree with you, Noah, and I like how, Jack, you bring up the Rams. And not to mention, it doesn't help when not only when you have nothing to work with, when your division's going to get better and better and better. The Niners are going to be back and they're going to be healthier. The Rams are going to be contending. And I think the Cardinals have a bright future. It doesn't help that the Seahawks are on the bad end of it.
As far as we know, Dean, one of the main teams interested in Deshaun Watson is San Francisco. Oh. So take the great division you already have and throw Deshaun Watson potentially in there.
Please trade him to San Francisco.
Do a loaded Niners offense.
Oh, my God.
Samuel, Kittle.
What do you do?
Please go to San Francisco and get out of the AFC.
Don't worry, it's not like it's going to affect you. You're still that Mahomes guy.
Yeah, true.
Thank you, Jack. All right. I believe we're on to our last topic. Some awful news this afternoon. Vincent Jackson, former Chargers and Buccaneers receiver, passed away. Vincent Jackson, who was, in my opinion, one of the most underrated receivers. He was a second-round pick in 2009. He is 4th on the Bucs all-time receiving list, and he's 9th on the Chargers all-time receiving list.
He was 4th on the Bucs. He was that long.
Fourth all-time in Tampa Bay and 9th all-time in San Diego, LA, but back then San Diego.
Yeah.
Really awful news. Just brutal.
38 years old.
Gone too soon.
38 years old.
He was such a great player.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
he was underrated.
And we really don't know what happened to him yet, right? I mean, as far as we know, he was just in a hotel room. And
the cause of death hasn't been released yet. So apparently, I was looking at a story earlier. On February 10th, his family or someone in his family filed a missing persons report on him, and then they later found him, spoke to him. He was in a hotel. He was fine, and took away the report. And then earlier today, he was found in his room by a housekeeper.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of work off the field. I saw he was a Walter Payton honoree, I think 4 times. He was one of the finalists.
Yeah.
He did a lot with, I think, veterans and their families. He did a lot off the field. So a really good dude. And he was a great player. And I think one of his lasting impacts, especially coming off a Super Bowl win for the Buccaneers, is he was the veteran, right? As soon as Mike Evans was in the league, I think they coincided for like a year or two.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he had a huge impact on Mike Evans and is probably one of the reasons why he's such a dominant player today.
The ultimate trio: Mike Glennon, Mike Evans, and Vincent Jackson.
Correct me. Vincent was 10th.
The massive loss. I mean, anytime anybody of that age, in sports or out of sports,
too soon
dies, it's a massive loss for a community, for a family, for it just so happens that this is somebody that's more well known that we all have heard of, at least.
At least he got to see them win last week. I think that probably was a pretty cool thing that happened to him a week ago, seeing them win the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, R.I.P. Vincent Jackson. That's
Yes.
just horrible news
May
today.
he rest.
Especially on the Chargers. That Chargers team was.
Yeah, oh my God, when they were loaded with Rivers, Antonio Gates, he was their number 1 receiver. They couldn't beat my Jets.
And you know what's crazy? So Marty Schottenheimer, the coach of that team, and the star receiver, both in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Because Marty Schottenheimer was the coach of those Chargers teams for years and years.
Yes, absolutely.
So
doesn't matter if he was there right now. They haven't came down.
terrible.
Yeah. All right. I believe we should move on to winners and losers. Me and Noah are winners. Jack and Aidan are losers. I'll start off with winners if you guys don't mind. I'm going to go with UCF. So for those who don't know, UCF football has just hired Gus Malzahn, former Auburn coach, the guy that Auburn bought out and still owe money to him during a pandemic. Gus Malzahn will be going to UCF. Not only do I think this helps UCF's recruiting, but man, UCF is going to be competitive next year. The best Florida team taking a step up. I'm not going to get into why they're better than the Gators and the Seminoles, but you get the gist of it.
Yeah, I'm going to make my winner this week the Dodgers. They re-signed Justin Turner a couple days ago. I think there was a lot of suspicion as to whether he'd come back or not. He's back for at least the next 2 years. He, as we all know, is a terrific third baseman. He fits right back into their lineup as one of the guys in the middle of the order at the hot corner. And for a team that looks as good as any team that we've seen in Major League Baseball in years, it's nice to have him back. He's the longest tenured guy they have outside of Kershaw. He is phenomenal and good to have him back. I know he'll be a Dodger legend forever. One of the great players they've had in this long stretch of titles and division titles, and he'll be back now.
It's never should have let him go.
Nope.
Mr. COVID himself. All right. My loser, and I mean, they've been losers for pretty much a long time at this point, I gotta say. It's gotta be Houston sports fans. What's been happening to them is very, very rough. Ever since there's a video on YouTube, you're naming tree, like Houston, the city that sold its soul. Ever since they won that World Series, it's been all downhill from them in every aspect. The Rockets have lost. The Rockets have traded Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden all the span of 2 years. Watson looks like he's going to be on his way out. They lost George Springer, and just recently they lost J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt is finally free of that awful organization. They treated guys like him and Watson so disrespectfully, and I feel like for Houston sports fans, they got a long way to go. It's only going to get worse before it's going to get better.
And Justin Verlander just blew his elbow.
Yeah.
He'll be out all this season.
Nothing is going right for Houston sports fans.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for them.
My loser, thank you, Dean, for letting me know about this. He texted me in the middle of the episode to let me know that the Maple Leafs blew a 5-1 lead with just over a period to go. They were up 5-1 with a minute to go in the second period, ended up losing 6-5 in overtime to the Senators.
The worst
Wow.
team.
That's the worst part about it. The Senators might be, I mean, last season they were one of the worst teams ever. So I know we don't talk about hockey a lot, but Dean let me know that one, so I had to bring that up.
Maybe if you didn't leave New York and go to Toronto, things wouldn't have been this way. Just saying. John Tavares.
See, how close are the Rangers to that Stanley Cup? It's this year, man.
Yeah, nice try, Jack. You're still in the bottom of the division. The Islanders run New York, and
Hey, man.
They are really good. They are very,
You did manage to beat the best team
twice.
twice.
Before we go, let's make a quick prediction. Where does J.J. Watt end up?
Steelers. He's going with TJ and Derek.
I hate to say this, but he's going to end up in Green Bay.
I'd like to see
very
Buffalo.
I'm gonna take the very biased approach.
But I think it's Green
say
Bay.
Buffalo. Come to Buffalo, J.J. Watt. We
Go to
need you.
Kansas City. They need an extra defender. No, I'm kidding. All right. We'll see you, boys.
Well, this has been another edition of Agree to Disagree. I'm your host, Dean Gutek, alongside with me, Aidan Shard, Noah Schwartz, Jack Sello. Go check us out on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Agree to Disagree on VIC. Follow us on Instagram, Agree to Disagree _VIC, and our Twitter, A2D _VIC. See you next week.